What's going on, guys? It's Bryce again. Welcome to another episode of the Expedition to Try podcast, where I have no idea what I'm doing with my life, and I'm assuming a lot of you don't either. So we're going to try and figure it out together. If you're new to this podcast, it's my goal to introduce you to rad artists, musicians, photographers, videographers, entrepreneurs, and overall creative, passionate people who deserve way more recognition than they currently have. So on today's episode, super excited to introduce you to Carlos. So Carlos, do you want to say hi, give a general description of who you are?
Hey guys, yeah, man. Thank you again, Bryce, for having me on your podcast. Again, guys, my name is Carlos. Online, I go by OK Carlos, OHKAY, where you can find me as a filmmaker trying to discover my journey into the industry and just into the internet world of creativity and that whole explosion. So that's me and that's my passion, guys.
So first question, where did the name OK Carlos come from? Is there like a deeper meaning behind that?
So it's funny that you asked. Okay, Carlos was probably like the simplest way of coming up with a name. So I'm a big tech guy as well. So my whole house is like teched out with all the Google Homes and Google Voice. So the whole Google Home, the smart house race with Alexa and Google. Basically, I have to say okay Google every single time. So I was just like, you know what? I want to make a video. I want to make a YouTube. I say let's. Sorry, guys. So I just went the route of saying, okay, Carlos. And then anything coming to my page, I kind of meshed it with my real life because I get a lot of questions from young, inspiring creators as well. So it's just like, okay, Carlos kind of stuck. And we've been going ever since.
Honestly, that'd be sick if like one day you somehow create that app or that device that you could be like, what would Carlos do in this situation? And then you ask, okay, Carlos.
That'd be awesome.
So, are you a photographer, videographer? What exactly is your hobby slash passion?
Interesting. So to keep it short, I started as a photographer. So I came in around probably 2010, bought my first camera, and probably went 3 years of being a photographer, and that later kind of guided me into the video portion of everything. And so that transitioned into a cinematographer. So I loved everything as far as like motion pictures as well. So my profession is cinematography, making films and making content in short form and long form, and then my hobby is still being that agent behind the camera of being photography. So you can catch me still doing headshots or taking pictures of how the sunlight sets in my office or in my home or anything like that. And so that's where that came from.
So, where exactly did this whole thing kind of start? More so like first memories of maybe photography or videography that you can remember that kind of like really struck a chord with you.
It's funny. It's funny. I had this conversation with my mom probably a couple years ago. It was actually her who told me. Um, I don't know. I might show my age here. I'm 33, so I'm back in the days where you used to have the disposable cameras.
Hmm.
And so anytime we were like go on vacation to visit my cousin or my grandma down in Florida, I would always get a hold of my mom's disposable camera. And so we'd take pictures of the family, and then a few weeks later, my mom would take it to the CVS or then Eckert's and get it developed. And then she would always notice all these selfies. I think I created selfies, by the way, but she would notice all these selfies of me in the disposable printouts, and she was like, "You've been messing with my camera since you was 6 years old." So I was like, "That's probably my earliest experience behind the camera." And I was like, "Okay, mom, yeah, I think you're on to something there."
That's funny. My dad believes he invented the words on the back of pants. Um, so I'm right there with you with that kind of deal. But I don't believe him. I'm more inclined to believe you with the selfie.
That's
So
funny.
where are you currently based?
Perfect. So I am currently in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm actually born and raised in Atlanta.
Okay.
So it's funny, everyone's saying that we're the mecca for like content and filmmaking and home of Marvel now. And it's cool to actually see that transition from Atlanta just being a small hub to now such a big player. So it makes it a lot easier to really fall in love with the industry and really put fruits to the labor instead of, traveling to New York or LA for any of that type of stuff as well.
And did you go to college or did you finish high school and decide to not go to college? What was that whole story?
So I don't know if I want to put this on tape. I wish probably I didn't go to college. I did go to college, graduated. I think I didn't go to film school though. I actually
Mhm,
went to school to study marketing.
mhm,
So it took a couple years before I realized marketing would actually play a huge role in for me going into filmmaking and production because now when I took it, the world was just getting acclimated to YouTube, to podcasts, kind of being in the hands of anybody like you and myself to kind of dive into this world and create a profession on it and talk to others. So for me, I went to Kennesaw State University and, I learned the meaning behind all the colors and the images. And that's what I took into the industry. As far as me now, someone once told me I think we're of the of the generation where me and you having children, we probably wouldn't force our children to go to college because there's
mhm.
so many other opportunities that you can do. You can be a professional gamer now,
Yeah.
so even if you graduate high school or you don't, there's still other avenues to kind of do. So I've always been of like that. I don't know if you know Gary
Oh,
Vaynerchuk.
I love Gary Vaynerchuk. Top 10,
Good.
top actually, like, top 1 human being in the world.
Like he makes a lot of sense saying that, generational wise, you're being taught what your parents and the parents before you were being taught, your grandparents at that particular time. And
Mhm.
we're in a new age of where that may not necessarily reflect today's, way of being successful or being happy or moving forward. And so I'm very, strong on that. And I think Gary puts it in a very simple term. It's just like, look, go do what makes you happy, makes you money, and makes you passionate about.
Absolutely. So back then, or let's do this. What do you think you would have done instead? Could you go back and decide whether you wanted to go to college or not? Because
Mm.
I feel like maybe you're definitely not much older than me. I'll be 25 this year.
Okay,
So it's
cool.
not like we're too far off, but I don't think back then even the available resources and opportunities were the same as they are today. So, what do you think you would have done differently, if anything?
I think for me, I would have jumped on YouTube
Mhm,
much quicker. I think I was still of that age where everything in front of me was all that you could really see. It wasn't that investor mentality of, seeing what's coming up next. So, everything as far as dating, as far as going out, hanging out with friends, playing sports, everything's in front of you and that's all you're thinking about at that moment in time. So if I could tell my younger self going back to college, hey, this is going to be a new way of communication, this is going to be what's important, this is what's going to change the world and connect the world on a whole nother level, and I just probably would have been more proactive on YouTube. And I've always been a part of social media, but it wasn't until probably like 6 years ago that I kind of separated personal and just really used the internet as a distribution point of just, us connecting. And I wish I would have caught on to that probably around 18 and 19 and really progressed because look at everyone who kind of did, or up have created a whole new industry and career.
yeah.
And, the world has accepted it now.
Mhm. How do you view those kind of like the turning points in society? I guess we can call them like the internet versus then YouTube coming out and social media. Like, do you regret missing those, or do you look at it as like, I definitely missed it, but I can still do it now and still make it bigger than a lot of people if I just stay consistent with it? How do you view those like missed opportunities, quote unquote?
No, for real. So I would kind of compare it to Netflix. So Netflix came out DVDs back in roughly '08, '09. No one outside of investors would have assumed that Netflix would have been the giant it is today based on solely the progression of the internet. And so, if you would invest in Netflix back then, you could probably be a millionaire and a billionaire now just in the mainstream of what it is. But the truth of the matter is, even though I feel like I missed that moment, Netflix is still here, streaming is still here, the internet is still here. So you can start now and it's not going away. So to your consistent point, I wish I would have been on that turnstile of, hey, something new is here, something new is approaching, and it's going to change and be a part of the wave that's going to change. So now there's going to be another change. Eventually it's going to come, especially with the whole virtual reality with metaverse and the effects of COVID, where everyone being home and how you watch your content now, and movie theaters being impacted. So, to answer your question in short, I feel like you can jump in now because truthfully, I jumped into YouTube 2 years ago, and
Mhm.
it's different then than it is now. And I've seen people jump in it last year who have stayed consistent and had just as much of success as anybody who started back in 2010 and 11. So I think it's just all about the grind. I hate to go back to Gary V, but it's just like the internet's here. Social media is here. You have a new TikTok.
Mhm.
When we thought Instagram was dying out or had reached this plateau, and now everyone's on TikTok. So there's going to be another social media. There's going to be another aspect that's going to continue to unite us to be the next 2011 moment. You know,
Yeah, you always gotta be on the lookout for that stuff, which I don't wanna go fully into it because I could talk about this probably for hours, but
me too.
and especially with Gary Vaynerchuk talking about the NFTs and the metaverse, it's just like I've never felt as though I've had this early opportunity. Like
Mhm,
it is that kind of turning point in my mind that
mhm.
our parents had when the internet came out. It's like that moment, but for us now. So I'm trying to learn as much as I can about that. And I know I'll make mistakes, but I think it's like that thing that we have to focus on the most right now.
So how do you feel about NFT and that whole landscape of things? And I think what Gary's kind of dubbed it as Web 3.0.
Yeah.
So it's just like the new step. What do you feel? How do you feel that's going to affect the market in the world?
I'm fascinated by it, I will say. And much like he says, I know a lot of the stuff that's out right now is not going to survive. It's going to fail. Um, but I think it has a huge amount of potential. And he just released something with a restaurant where you buy an NFT pass and you basically get to go to the restaurant for free after you buy the pass, um,
Wow.
and go to events and things with famous people. So I think with everyone there will be some way to create an NFT with utility that if you have enough fans who are willing to pay for it, then you'll be able to give them utility, like coming to your concerts, getting free videos or advice, whatever it might be, and then it'll also grow as your platform grows. So I'm super fascinated to see what happens with it. I think there's a big future for them.
I do too.
Yeah, it's gonna be a cool couple of years. I'm excited.
I know, I know. It's that turn. It's 2011 all over again. It's that turning
Exa
point.
So, is the photography slash cinematography like a solely a passion slash hobby, or is it a full-time career for you now?
So in the beginning, it started as a hobby. Again, back to that phase of where I think everybody goes through what they want to do with their life, and some of us may have that moment in college, and so definitely started as a passion, and then I don't know, it became a feeling. You like having that feeling of something being able to make you happy and full of what you're doing. So the problem is the sustainability. Like, how do you make that into a career or get paid? Because you have your finances and everything that's coming up. So for me, it was really just transitioning a passion into a grind to be hopefully, the breadwinner of, taking care of yourself or your family. So I've been at this probably now for this is my 12th year. So being there, moving consistently more into there, Um, Oddly enough, I think last year was my busiest year, as far as working on features, short films, and commercials. So I look forward to keep bringing that steadily on. And there's nothing wrong with having a part-time job in between. Like anything that we want is hard work, dedication, and it's the front end that's always going to be hard,
Mhm.
with the balance. And then once you just keep putting in the grind and putting in the work, eventually it'll be a payoff to where that's what you get to do is just wake up and do that and be happy about doing that.
Mhm.
So definitely photography started as a passion, found out I can make money from it, turned into, hey, I love movies. I've always loved movies, just taking you out that world, and it just kind of merged together and it became that.
So going back to that first moment when you bought that camera, I'm now remembering the post you put. It was like a Nikon, I don't remember the number,
Ooh,
that you
yes,
bought back in
D90.
2009. Yeah. What was that moment like? What was going through your mind when you said, "All right, I'm buying this camera," because that's like a nice camera, versus like just picking up a cell phone at the time, the first iPhone or whatever it was. So what made you want to buy that camera finally?
So strangely enough, it was 2000. Oh my gosh, was it 2009? I think it was 2009. I was working at the movie theater and I had just got transferred to another location, and the location was rough, but we had a lot of celebrities come to that location. And I think I was still in college. I was going through, regular stuff that college students go through. And I think I just kind of had a breakdown, like a full on breakdown of not being happy, not being where I wanted to be, and I don't know, just not being in a joyful state anymore. So I was like, I don't advise anybody to do this, but I said, I quit my job. That weekend, I quit my job. I went home and I literally said this. I sat in front of my computer and I said, what do I want to do? And before that moment, I remember working on my mom's, it was the house computer. It was one of those old big XP fatback monitor screens. And anytime I used to have little projects where I work in Windows Media Player, just slideshows. And I remember every time I get to maybe the fourth picture, it would crash every single time. Back then, I didn't know anything about RAM. I didn't know anything about hard drive, anything. So, long short story short, I was like, okay, I know I love editing. I know I love being behind a camera, from previous experience. I was like, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this right. So I took my money that I made from the movie theater, and I was like, well, the first thing I need is a camera. The second thing I need is a computer. So at that time, I don't think I had made a purchase on Amazon before. Amazon was out, but I think I was weary of like putting credit card
Yeah.
information on the internet then. So I went to the mall and I went to Wolf Camera Store. And a lot of people probably don't even remember or know what that is, but it was a little camera store that used to be in malls called Wolf Camera. And I went in there and I was like, I need a camera. This is before cameras were like sold at Target and Walmart.
Mhm.
So I went in and bought this D90. I recognized the Nikon D90 because I did a photo shoot with a friend and he had a Nikon D90. So I was like, cool, I'll get that. Needless to say, the Nikon D90 was $1,500, but I was proud that I had saved all my little $300, $400 checks up, just to get this camera.
Mhm.
So paid for it, got home, got this big box of the camera, your first unboxing, and I just looked at it, and at that time you had to kind of hide it from your parents because it's like can't justify a $1,500 purchase to them. But I looked at it and I was just like, okay, this is the start of it. And ever since then, I never put a camera down.
And so what was the moment where you first realized that like, "Oh shit, people would pay me to do this?" Do you have a story behind that?
So I think the first thing is like, so social media was just booming up. I think we had just left MySpace completely.
Mhm.
Facebook had just like opened up to be available outside of like the school networks. And so one of the biggest thing was, I don't know if you remember, but Facebook used to be picture profiles used to be like 25 megs, and they were so small, they were
Yeah.
so tiny. So during that transition, everyone wanted pictures.
Mhm.
So I remember seeing a couple friends like advertise their business, and I was just like, you know what? I think a lot of people are gonna want pictures. So I reached out to an artist that I used to follow on MySpace, and I was just like, hey, I'm a photographer. I want to go ahead and get some shoots of you. I like your music, anything like that. He was like, cool. He was like, $300, cool. I was like, yeah, $300 is fine. 2 hour shoot. So I was like, huh. So then when you get out and start taking pictures of people, no matter, it's always the park for some reason. I think that's just because it's the first free space we can find. I take a picture at the park, the next person comes up, hey, I got an event that I need a photographer. I got a
Mhm.
wedding that I need a photographer. And I was like, wow, you can make some real money here. And so then recently, during that time, I started working at like little nightclubs and everything like that because they needed event photography. Now that's when I end up starting to hate photography because at the end of the night you have like 2,500 pictures and you have to go back and edit all those pictures. But at that those moments were the times I was like, okay, you can actually do something that you love, be paid for it, and kind of like sector out to be creative or sector out to be efficient
Mhm.
and have these memories for these people. And I enjoyed it. And that was my turning point right there.
What did your family and friends think at that time when you started to think maybe you could do this more as a full-time gig? Like, were they supportive or were they questioning it? Like, how are you gonna do that? It's just a camera. Like, what was going on with everyone surrounding you at that time?
So it was hard. It was really hard because I come from a educational background. So my mom's a teacher, principal. My aunt was a teacher. My brother worked in technology for school. So my whole entire family was going into the educational platform some kind of way. And here I am, the creative, artsy kid with the camera saying I want to completely buck that system. And so, I'd have worried, just like we spoke about earlier, about our parents' generations. And, they were taught go to college, go to school, you get a job, take care of your family, have a family. And so, for my longest time, my mom didn't see what she sees now as creators all over the world, creators who can get paid by the big industries just to talk and express things that they like. So as that kid, it was hard, man. I didn't have any adults on my side. I was the wayward child who didn't want to go to school or who didn't want to finish school. And you're gonna sustain your career, or you're gonna sustain your life by taking pictures. So that was hard. It was hard. It took my mom probably about 5 to 6 years before she realized, like when she started seeing the money come in, me taking care of certain things, that's when she kind of realized, okay, my son is artsy.
Mhm.
I'm going to have to adjust my approach. And for me, my biggest supporter until my mom got on board was my older brother.
Mm.
And my older brother at the time was probably 10 years older than me. So he was a grown man. And so he was the only one who sat down, talked to me, listened to me, and said, you know what? You're going to make it. You're going to do big things. I can't wait to see your movies that you're going to make. You're going to do it. And this is back in like 2009, 2010. And so around 2015, 2014, after I graduated college in 13, that's when my mom started seeing it. She was like, oh, you just worked on the GEICO commercial? Oh, okay. So it's just like, that's where it kind of solidified for my mom. And my support system is like, okay, we believe you.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting journey with that.
And so, from going from that moment where you started to get a little peeved with photography itself, what was the transition then into the more cinematography and then getting into working with Geico or any other of these big commercials and things that you're doing now?
So for me, photography transitioned into music videos. I had a buddy of mine, one of my closest friends in the world. He's actually a engineer, a music engineer, and he went to school for it. And he came back and he started working with a whole lot of different type of artists. And these artists will always come in and say, "Hey, we need photography and we need a music video." So naturally, that became my sector of saying, "Hey, I can shoot this music video. I can shoot you something." And so as I grew into that, because I was just completely burnt out from event photographies, hundreds of pictures, not having motivation to edit all these pictures or know what someone completely wants from the event side. I was like, behind the camera for videos got me excited again.
Mm,
And, coming back to my computer and being able to edit something I saw in my head completely differently than what I initially recorded, like that blew me all the way back. Like that was fun. That was creative problem solving. And cinematography and film industry is just problem solving. Like the art is second to problem solving. And I fell in love with problem solving and the art. So it was fun transitioning from photography and then telling people, "Hey guys, I don't do that anymore," but or at least not professionally anymore.
mhm.
And then move into like just the motion capture. So music videos and the creativeness behind music videos led to exploring more into, hey, I made a music video. Like I'm sitting here watching a movie. Let's take a stab at making a movie. So I made my first short film and it was just me. It was just me getting ready for the day, putting my clothes on, what I go through, the little different justifications of the things that are in my room. It was really cool. It just showed who I am and be able to like spark a feeling. I think that's what really caught me was sparking a feeling, seeing people love their music videos, having people ask questions about how did you shoot that, how did you make that, and then from there, man, it was just finding the community. And once I found the film community here in Atlanta at that time, it was just soaring off from there.
So, what are some of your both short term and long term goals for either your career, your life in general, or anything you could think of?
My short term goal is definitely, I wouldn't say short term. I think my entire aspect is I want to be able to inspire others, tell a story that you know a marginalized story that doesn't always get to see the light of day, and then most importantly kind of going back to the academic side of my family, I want to teach and I want to be able to pass what I know even at 33 off to somebody who's just now picking up a camera, whether they're 12 or 19 or 25. um, and at the end of the day, man, I just want to be happy doing what I do and get joy from other people being able to say, "Hey, I did what you just showed me how to do," or "Hey, I just bought this because you said this was the budget value to something much bigger and I got the same effect." And just to be able to kind of keep recycling and just growing a new avenue. I said earlier, for me, it was finding a film community here in Atlanta. So I just want to be that community for people and provide them more of that community and the people in there to show that, hey, this is possible. No matter if you're white, black, blue, purple, green, like you have an idea, you have a gift that you want to share with the world. Like, let's see what that looks like because we all started at zero before. It's easy to start from nothing. You just start. So it's just being consistent. So, I just want to wake up and be able to communicate with people like yourself and then anybody else who hits me up on Instagram or Twitter with a question. And that gets me joy and that gets me excited.
What do you think your ideal life day to day would look like and feel like?
Ooh, ooh, okay. That's a good question. For me, it's just it's simplicity to be honest. I said I love technology and I love technology. I love everything, that the average person could like and, would want to go spend. I have indulgence that I want to enjoy, but simplicity of just being able to wake up and not stress, not worry, to be able to see my wife, enjoy my family, everyone healthy, And just to be able to wake up and roll over and do something that I love, that's with it's a big team project. Like, if you watch the movies, like a Marvel movie, there's over 500,000 people, 500 to 1,000 people that are contributed to this film. Like,
Mhm.
being on a big team aspect like that, I just love that. I love getting up, going to that. I'll get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, you know, and sometimes have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning just to go out there and fulfill that. So being able to wake up casually, enjoy the simplicities of my household and my family and my friends, and knowing that everybody's okay, to waking up to going, getting in my car and going to set, and knowing I'm gonna be there 18 hours, but it's fun. Is that bring that's my light, and that's my joy going into the actual day.
And so how do you feel about changing your mind? Because I know a lot of people are afraid, like if they've been doing something for a while and they figure out it's not for them, they're afraid
Mhm.
to leave, which you did do going from photography to then more of the videography. So how did that moment play out in your head? Was it tough? And like, how do you think it'll play out in the future?
So for me, one thing, the only reason I ever got on YouTube, it wasn't for money, and it wasn't for fame or notoriety or anything like that. It was out of fear.
Mhm,
Like, me putting my face on the internet was out of fear because I was afraid to, and I don't like being afraid to where I'm compelled not to do something.
mhm.
So if I'm gonna be fearful of something, I just want to go ahead and be fearful while I'm doing it, and just
Yeah.
get it done. And then you just kind of shave it off. So for me, moving from photography to film was scary because, like I said, I didn't have a film community. I knew exactly nobody doing what I was doing in my own city at that time. And that was hard. So, like most filmmakers you see, they say, I made a film with my friends. I made a film with my dad, my mom, and things like that, with family members. So I ended up doing that, man, and just being afraid of not knowing what I was doing. I ended up making a short film. And then the next fearful move was just submitting, like searching the internet for anything that's in the city, submitting that film, getting invited to the film festival, and then just being like scared shitless, like in the crowd, because I was like, my name's Carlos. Like, I don't do this. I've never put myself in this position. So if you're, truthfully, my advice is, if you're in a position that you just know you're not happy in anymore,
Mhm.
don't lock yourself down just because of the money. Because, like I said, you can be happy and broke, or you can be financially stable and miserable for a very long time. And I just didn't want to be that person. And like I said, I there's bouts where you're up and you're down, and so it's just really being fear is what motivated me to even be on the internet talking to myself most of the time. So that would be my advice.
So what do you think makes you different in those moments where you fully like jumped into it? So like when you bought that first camera, because a lot of people have those feelings of like, I want to do something different. I want to pursue something creative. I want to do all these things, but they still just never do it. What do you think makes you different? What thought was the motivator? Like, what is it about those decisions that you're able to actually commit to and dive into?
I think the scary part is being able to know that you're probably going to go into something and you're just experimenting.
Mhm,
Okay, maybe I like being behind the camera, but it doesn't mean I'm going to be a photographer. Maybe I like doing podcasts, but maybe I don't want to show my face. Maybe it's just my voice. So I think you have to open yourself up to know that, okay, I'm gonna bounce around to different pillars and different avenues until maybe I find something that I like. And a few years later, you might find something that you like even more. The key, the outlier is just finding whatever that motivation that's making you happy and it's driving you. 'Cause that's going to help you when you bounce left to right to different things. But that was the whole thing our parents wanted us to do in college. You're supposed to go there, see what you want to do, see what you want to become, taking different classes to see what sparks your interest. It's no different in right now, no different in life. The best part about it is everything is more accessible. Everything that we do now was completely had a gatekeeper behind it, whether the gear costs hundreds of thousands of dollars or we just didn't have the infrastructure, internet at home, you know? So for me, I just say, the more that you experiment with now, don't let anybody tell you that you're too old for anything. Please don't. I'm 33 years old. I'm considered a baby in my industry. So don't ever let anybody tell you you're too old, you're making a mistake. Because like Gary Vee says, you're working under that old mindset of somebody else's one, either fear they're putting projecting on you, or two, what was instilled from them from parents that lived back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. So it's just a whole different mindset, and it's just acclimating yourself to a new mindset and not being fearful. You're not always going to have everybody on your side. You're not always going to have anybody approve you doing what you want to do or what you think you want to do at that time.
Mhm,
But you're the only person living your life.
mhm.
So make that choice. Stick with it. The only thing I just say, just be consistent. Keep doing it. Don't let nobody make you fearful of what you want to do.
So something I've been thinking about a lot, and I wrote a short blog about it recently, was over preparing. So like
Mm,
something you really want to try, but you spend so much time researching it and figuring out as much as you possibly can that eventually you never even do it.
mm.
What's something that you've learned along the way that there was probably no way you could have known had you not actually done the thing? Like, it can be about photography and cinematography or just about anything.
I think it's funny how you say that because you were describing me completely. I mean, Carlos the person, not the filmmaker or anything like that. One of the biggest things that I always did was, if you can, I over researched to where it became a block and it became a wall for me not to do something. So one of my go tos was it's like, hey, we're gonna do this right. Let's research it, research it, research it, and then that's fine. That's how you're supposed to start. But before you know it, you just keep researching, 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 because now you're trying to be, perfect at what you're trying to whatever accomplish. Whether it's make a film, whether it's going out meeting people, whether it's going out applying for a job, like that's the hard part. And I think I didn't even have that epiphany until 2017. I just kept preparing and preparing and preparing that I didn't make anything. I didn't step forward into action because truthfully, I was just psyching myself out. And I think there's a fine line between preparation and then action. Action without preparation, like you said, you're prone to make a lot of mistakes. Preparation and action, you're going to make mistakes, but you're going to learn from your mistakes. You're not going to be afraid to make further mistakes in the future. And I just don't want anybody to go into life thinking or allowing perfection to be the standard. Perfection is not the standard. It's not, it's actually impossible. Perfection will block you more than fear. So if you just get through, no matter what you're doing. So if you're in your own industry, if you're in your own journey in life, like just get out there and live, man. Don't do anything crazy. Like there's real mistakes out here. Don't do anything crazy, but just don't let perfection and fear limit, the best version of you.
Mhm. So, what do you think would be one piece of advice you could give for that person who wants to start something but is hesitant to, scared to, for whatever reason? What would be that one thing you could say that would hopefully push them over that final barrier?
I would just say do it. Like simply enough. I'm sorry that's not like super articulate or beautiful, but it's just kind of like down to that simple action. Like it is an animalistic instinct of just do it.
Mhm,
It's gonna hurt for a second. Just like let's say going to the gym. People struggle with going to the gym or they're going to the gym, whatever the case may be. It's a muscle. And if we don't work out that muscle because of fear, because of perfection, like you lose it, or you don't even know you have that capability or that strength. So whatever it is that you're searching for, I don't even care if you want to play in the NBA. Like or the NFL or anything like that. You won't know until you try. So it was funny because I was teasing my wife. The lottery at the time of this podcast was like $600 million. And she was like, "You going to play a ticket?" And I was like, "Well, one chance is better than zero, you know?" So you just have to put yourself forward and put yourself out there to experience because you're not going to know what you're strong at, and you're not going to know what you're weak at, and you're not going to know how to get better, with your weakest point. So I would just say do it. And, if you have a hard time, find a mentor, find someone that you see doing what you want to do and inspiring and learn from their mistakes as well. Shoot, we're on the internet. Ask them a question, you know? 9 times out of 10, you might get a reply. That's what the internet was for, at least in the public sector, was to communicate. So now more than ever, we're in a position where you can simply reach out to somebody. I can reach out to Gary Vee right now by shooting him a message. Will he respond? That's up for him to decide. But I shot my shot already.
Mhm.
I did it. So it's just like, go out there and do it, guys. Don't be fearful. Coming from me, the most fearful person that was starting, like, just do it, guys.
So that's the perfect transition into sort of the wrap up because I know you got a call to get to. So where can people find you on social media and reach out to you if they have any questions on starting their own journey into photography, videography, or whatever it might be?
Hey guys, so you can reach me at OK Carlos on Twitter, on Instagram, even my Gmail. Even my mail is okcarlos at Gmail. Shoot me a message. Constantly answering questions and just having a conversation about gear, technology, and industry on those three platforms. So if you ever need me, just look me out. It's OHKAY Carlos.
Awesome. And what's on the horizon for your pages? What are you looking to release? What can people be on the lookout for?
With the increase of COVID right now, there's some things that are going to kind of be put to the back seat. But later on to the latter this year, definitely look out for a couple short films that are going to be coming out for me. It's going to be highlighting a lot of great talent between LA and Atlanta. So you'll see those on my platforms if you give me a follow. YouTube is OK Carlo as well. And if you're looking for any more learning tips or budget friendly tips to going into your industry or going to learning more about filmmaking, content creation, or even just talk about movies, which I love to do, I can talk for hours about that too. Like I said, you can reach out to me on OK Carlos on YouTube. You can follow the channel, like it, subscribe it, just to stay updated on a lot of my most updates of videos that are coming out. And be sure to tune into my YouTube. I try to have at least one video out every week this year. That's a goal of mine. And that way we can learn different things. And if you have any other questions, we can go from there.
All right, rad. So I'll put you on the spot real quick before we wrap it up. But
Uh oh.
what's uh what's a movie everyone should be watching right now?
Ooh. Ooh. Right now, what's a good movie? Ooh, you did put me on the spot.
It could even
Oh
be
man.
like your favorite movie of all time. It doesn't have to be technically newer
Hmm.
or anything. Any movie that you could think of that people should be watching.
So it's funny. My favorite movie is It's Kind of a Funny Story.
Oh, I got that book right here.
Do you?
Oh yeah.
That is my favorite movie. So I would suggest that movie and that book. But the movie, if you haven't seen it, it's really adaptable to anybody's life and circumstances. It just really gives you the outlook of just, hey, no matter where you're at in life, like look at it from a different lens. Look at it from a different perspective. Like, guys, you're waking up, you're breathing, you're living. It's not as bad as the man of the world or the universe or situations may be pushed on you. So I think that's a very enlightening. And I always like coming of age stories too, where
Mhm.
that person finds themselves. So if you want to see and experience something where you're finding yourself and there's light at the end of the tunnel, I think that's definitely a slept on movie.
Awesome. Well, Carlos, thank you so much for coming on. Had a great time talking with you. I can't wait to listen through a second time and like fully learn everything you just said. It's gonna be awesome. And I can't wait to post clips and everything. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Bryce, I really appreciate you reaching out. And back to Bryce's point, Bryce just reached out, man, and I went to his channel, I subscribed, I saw all the content, man. So I just really appreciate you having me on, making me feel like I'm important, which I'm not, but I appreciate it, man. It's definitely an honor to be on this podcast with you, bro.
Hell yeah, absolutely, my man. So I can't wait to see what's coming out for you soon. And for all you who listen, thanks so much for listening. Hope you enjoyed. Go check out OK Carlos everywhere, dude. He's got so much shit coming out. I guarantee it's gonna be big very soon. So thank you all for listening. Hope you enjoyed. Peace out and good luck, everybody. See you soon.